How's it going, guys? John here. This is the Basic Expert, and in today's video for Monday, we are continuing our deep dive into Traveler, Classic Traveler specifically. I know some people are excited for this series. Many people are more familiar with, for instance, later editions of Traveler, such as, for instance, the most recent one, which is the Mongoose 2nd Edition Traveler, which is a fantastic game, and I eventually want to cover at some point, but I'm doing Classic Traveler first, well, because it's classic and it came first, so we should cover that. We should cover that one first. So in the last episode, in the last deep dive episode into Traveler, we created a character, and I kind of demonstrated how fun and fast character creation is. Yes, you can die in character creation, as the rules as written are well written. But you can rule to have injuries and other sorts of things. The rules do permit that sort of thing. I always run it, and I want to run it where characters die. I think it makes character creation fun, and it gives a more risk versus reward aspect to creating the character. So for instance, do I want to take another term in my army career? I could die, but I could get some good skills. So these are things that players have to keep in mind as they're doing character creation. There is a very big risk versus reward aspect in character creation right from the start, and I think removing death from character creation kind of cheapens and neuters that risk versus reward aspect of Classic Traveler. So, you know, we went through all these things. We have all these skills here. We're going to talk about skills in Classic Traveler because it works differently than, say, Mongoose Traveler works, 2nd Edition Traveler works. And I rather honestly kind of like the way Classic Traveler does skills as opposed to many other skill-based games. Because each skill almost, it feels very unique and they function in very different ways. And I think it's because of this, it is incredibly important as a referee and as a player when you get a skill, or if you're trying to use a skill that you are not particularly good at, or don't have any training in, if there's any penalties or situations as to how you make those rolls. Each skill is very different and applies modifiers to your dice modifiers to your rolls, and has different skill checks, target numbers based on the skill itself. Every single skill is designed to function in its own unique way. This might bother some people. I think it's rather cool. It makes characters feel unique. Skills almost feel like feats in that regard, if you're into that sort of thing, although I think they function better than feats do. So I really like the way they do that. So let's go through some of the skills, and I want to show an example of how this works. So let's look at weapons, for instance, which we'll get to weapons actually in a little bit. So when you're doing character creation, weapon expertise is expressed as a general trait, such as brawling, blade combat, or gunnery. When acquired, the character notes the area of expertise and immediately selects what the specific type of skill received. Thus, if this weapon skill received is gun combat, the character must select which type of gun the expertise is in. Gunnery and brawling do not require any selection because they have no subdivisions. So, bladed weapons, melee weapons in general, as well as firearms and other types of weapons, such as gun combat, have specific gun skills. You can't just take gun combat 1, gun combat 2, and be good at everything. If you earn gun combat in character creation, you have to select rifle, SMG, body pistol, revolver, laser rifle, plasma rifle. You want to add that. I don't know if you have plasma rifle in this. There's no plasma rifles in this, but you can see here. So, you know, carbines, auto pistols, laser carbine, shotguns. You have to pick a specific skill if you're using it. And then these here, if you want to have a positive DM added to your roll, because we'll get to combat in a bit, but if you want to have a positive dice modifier added to your roll, this is the I believe dexterity score that you need to have that modifier. If you have these ones, you have a penalty to your roll. And that's the same for the melee weapons over here. So if you have a strength of 12 or more, you're going to have a bonus added to your attack rolls when you're using a broadsword. If you have a strength of 7 or less, you're going to have a modifier added to a penalty essentially added to your rolls. And then obviously we have the damage here. So we have these basic skills here, and let's look at administration, and we'll look at another skill as an example as to how these skills are very different from one another and how they function differently from even the modern iteration of Traveler, where everything is just like a +1. I believe in Mongoose Traveler, you have a -3 penalty to any untrained skills check. Then you can achieve a level 0 in a skill. Level 0 means that it's just a straight dice roll, no penalties and no bonuses added to the roll. And then level 1 is a +1, level 2 is a +2, so on and so forth. Classic Traveler doesn't function that way because honestly, gaining skills is pretty brutal as far as training and character improvement is concerned. It takes a lot of work and a lot of in-game time, which could equate to a lot of out-of-game time as well. So kind of whatever skill level you're at, generally your character's probably going to be stuck at that skill level for most of their career, their adventuring career. So let's look at the administration skill here. It says the individual has had experience with bureaucratic agencies and understands the requirements of dealing with them and managing them. So they know how to go to the DMV and talk really nice to the mean lady behind the counter. So these parts here are really important. This tells you like what the skill is used for here, but you want to really read these other parts here that explain the skill in more detail, because it gives you, like I said, each skill functions in very different ways. So this skill says when contact with officials is required, understanding their needs and motives will assist in dealing with them. A basic throw of 7 or more will successfully resolve normal interaction without further problems, such as avoidance of police harassment, ensuring prompt issuance of licenses, approval of applications, avoidance of close inspection of papers, etc. DMs to be applied. No expertise, you would have a -3 penalty. So if you do not have an administration skill, but you attempt to interact with someone at the space DMV, and you're trying to get like your license, or you're trying to get goods that are on your ship brought aboard the space station, for example, you're going to have a -3 penalty to those checks. And then per level of admin expertise, you're going to have a +2. So if you have admin level 1, you have admin 1, administration 1, you're going to have a +2 modifier when you do that against these 7 or more skill checks. If you have administration 2, it's going to be +2. You're going to be really good at dealing with these government officials and whatnot. When serving in a bureaucratic organization, admin expertise allows competency in the eyes of superiors. DMs to be applied +1 per level of expertise. The exact throw to be determined by the referee under the circumstances. And then you get every skill has a little note for the referee. Admin expertise should also affect the quality of work and potential of success for an organization which the character is controlling or managing. So just things to keep in mind as far as the referee is concerned. Let's look at air raft, because again, this skill is not going to function in the same way as administration is. So air raft skill. The individual has training and experience in the use and operation of the air raft, floater, flyer, and all types of grav vehicles. The air raft is the major transportation vehicle on most worlds with high enough tech levels. Most people are aware of the basics of operation for such vehicles. The air raft can be dangerous to operate in high-speed situations or in bad weather. A basic throw of 5 or more to avoid an accident or mishap in bad weather. Chases or high-speed maneuvers should be used. DMs to be applied per level. So you have air raft 1, you're going to get a +1 to the roll. If weather is extremely bad, or if the craft is old, or if gunfire is involved in the chase, -1. So you can see that if bad weather is involved, you're gonna have a -1. But let's say bad weather is going on and you're being shot at by some bad guys chasing you in your air raft. You are driving, so you're gonna roll and you have a -2 penalty to the roll. Let's say somehow you have air raft 3 in skill. You're really good at driving air rafts. The way I would interpret this is your +1, this is the way I do it, your +1s would cancel out those negatives. So you're actually rolling at a +1. You're going to roll your 2d6, with +1, 2d6 +1, and you're going to try and roll 5 or more. So you can see skills function very, very differently here. Let's look at, you have ATV. The individual is acquainted with modern all-terrain vehicles and has been trained in or has experience with their operation. The term ATV, all-terrain vehicle, includes AFV, armored fighting vehicle, within its meaning. And so then you'd want to read this. Again, this one has a DM +1 per level, but you have to throw, to see if it is reliable, 11 plus per day for mechanical breakdowns. So every day you're using your ATV, you're just doing a straight 2d6 to roll to see if it breaks down. These are very reliable vehicles, so you have a very small chance of it breaking down, but the potential is there. You have bribery. The individual has experience in bribing petty and not so petty officials in order to circumvent regulations or ignore cumbersome laws. For example, in Traveler, the planets that you visit, the space stations that you visit, the Belter worlds that you visit have different law levels. And we'll get to that later in the Worlds book, which will be much further down the line. But just know that some of those worlds will not allow you to carry weapons onto them. But let's say you need to carry weapons onto them, you can use your bribery skill to try and avoid, maybe you can bribe the customs agent as you enter the planet or enter the space station to say, hey, just let me slide through here. You could also probably use your administration skill when dealing with these people as well. You can see kind of how flexible these things are to try and convince them maybe to, everything's fine, officer, you don't need to check that box, there's nothing in there, it's fine. So that's the sort of thing that you're doing there. Computer. The individual is skilled in the programming and operation of electronic and fiber optic computers, both ground and shipboard models. We need to read this computer skill because this is the computer skill, and the way computers work and programs work in Classic Traveler is going to feel very 1970s and 1980s sci-fi, because they're using really their concept of what computers were and how they worked and putting them into the far future. Computers perform valuable functions in human society, and individuals capable of using them find that their skill is equally valuable. Characters with computer expertise may be hired when needed to operate and program computers for organizations, ships, or other employers. Computer programs, especially Starship programs as mentioned in Book 2, which we'll get to much later, may be written by characters with expertise. The individual must have access to a computer which will handle the intended program, knowledge of the skill being incorporated, and no other duties or responsibilities during each week of work. Book 2 gives more details. In spite of all good intentions, there is always the possibility that such a program will have a fatal flaw and will not function when actually used in space combat. So notes for the referee. Referees throw 7 exactly for a fatal error to be written in. So while you're writing your program, referee throws a 7. If there's a 7, there's a fatal flaw. If there is none, throw 5 or less for a negative DM to appear on the program when used. There's a half chance that the DM will be a -1 or -2. These flaws will generally remain hidden until the program is actually used. So you program a missile targeting program for your ship, and you as the player, you use your skill. I roll as the referee, let's say I roll a 7. There's a fatal flaw in there now. You get into combat, and that program doesn't work at all. All of a sudden you can't target your missiles, and you didn't know that because everything looked fine until you started trying to use that program. So maybe it's a good idea to test your programs in your ships before you use them. Or there's a negative, all of a sudden there's a negative modifier. The referee would let you know that there is a negative modifier. So let's read the referee note. When characters want to write computer programs, the general procedures shown in Book 2 should be used with modifications for the specific purpose. The reason why I wanted to read this skill is because within Traveler, when you're in space combat, there's a whole phase in combat where you have to essentially unload a a program from the ship's computer and upload a new one to the computer. So you want to switch from. It's like the computer can only handle one program at a time. It's very, like I said, very 1970s, 1980s sci-fi in that regard, where you're over at the computer and we have to stop this program and upload a different program in order to do a different function. I think some computers, we'll get to it in again a future video, can maybe hold a couple different programs on them, but from what I read and understand, and I haven't done much space combat in my games. I would love to, but it just hasn't come up yet. It seems that you have to. It's again very old school. Remove a program, put a new program in its place. You have electronic skill. The individual has skill in the use, operation, and repair of electronic devices. The person is considered handy in this field with the equivalent of a green thumb talent. This skill includes repair of energy weapons, so laser rifles. If you want to add plasma rifles, you could add that as well. And let's see. People can read if you have the books yourselves. You can read more of these here. You have engineering. Forgery. The individual has a skill at faking documents and papers with a view to deceiving officials, banks, patrons, or other persons. So this one's an interesting skill. Documents necessary for cargo transfers, bank transactions, personal identification, and many other purposes are often closely inspected by officials, such as the police, customs agents, or clerks when encounters occur. Such encounters happen when the law level for a world or less is thrown, generally once or twice per day. The throw for detection for forged or fake documents is 6 or more. DMs to be applied, -2 per level of expertise. So this is more of a passive skill. And if you as the player character, let's say forge an ID and you get stopped by police on a very lawful planet, the referee would roll to check as playing as the police would roll to check if looking at your ID. And let's say you have a forgery level of 2 or sorry, of 1, forgery skill level 1, the referee would have to roll 6 or more and would apply a -2 penalty to their roll with their 2d6. You don't have to do anything as a player. Forward observer, very useful skill. The individual has been trained in military service to call on and adjust artillery, projectile, missile, and laser fire from distant batteries and from ships in orbit. So ships in orbit can drop artillery, or you can fire artillery from a different location. Generally, you have to be on radioing in location. So this is modern fire support. Essentially, you have to hit an 11 or more. And you get a 4 or more bonus for every level of expertise. And generally, you're probably going to miss your first shot with artillery. And so then you would observe where it landed, where the hit landed, and you'd have to redo your calculations, do a second roll, try and roll 11 or more. And you would get a +1 plus your skill level bonus. If adjusting person has no expertise, -4. So you really want to be able to know what you're doing when you're using that skill. Gambling, the individual is well informed in games of chance and wise in their play. He or she has an advantage over non-experts and is generally capable of winning when engaged in such games. Gambling, however, should not be confused with general risk-taking. Gunnery, this is using weapons on a ship. The basic skill of gunnery is covered on page 17. The individual is trained and competent in the operation of weapons mounted on starships. Defensive and offensive weapons are mounted in a variety of interplanetary and interstellar vessels. Gunnery expertise qualifies an individual to operate such weaponry and to be hired on a ship's crew. The title of gunner. There are different titles that people on ships have to have that require specific skills. Gunnery expertise avoids DMs in space combat as covered in Book 2, which we'll cover later. Gunnery may also be used for similar weapons mounted on ATVs and air rafts. Jack of all trades. This is a skill that everyone hopes they get because it's just a great skill. The individual is proven capable of handling a wide variety of situations and is resourceful in finding solutions and remedies. The well-rounded individual, the Renaissance man, so to speak, is uncommon in all societies, but is naturally proficient when he or she occurs. This skill is a general ability which may be applied to nearly any endeavor at the discretion of the referee. I really like that kind of language where let the referee decide. I know some people don't like that, but it's part of why I like Classic Traveler, because it just leaves a lot of choice up to the referee as to how they want to rule on something, and I appreciate that. The jack of all trades can attempt activity, which is not normally possible due to the absence of skills or expertise. Unskilled people have no idea how to even start many projects. Jack of all trades can apply this skill to such a project as if he or she has the skill. Jack of all trades can be considered to confer skill level 0 in every other skill, but never level 1. For example, one of a group of adventurers arrives at an aging crisis, page 8. You can age, and there's drugs you can take that slow or speed up aging. We didn't really cover it because it didn't really happen, but the rules are there. If you're following along and reading the book along with me, then you know that it's there. While on an expedition into the wilds of an unsettled planet, no one has medical expertise. Jack of all trades can be applied as a substitute for medical skill in this situation. The referee should assume that the person has studied independently at some time or has seen such a crisis previously and knows something of what to do. When using Jack of all trades skill, the referee should also consider appropriate personal characteristics, intelligence, education, availability of equipment, drugs, medical instruments, and other factors, weather, shelter, specific situation. Jack of all trades, however, is never sufficient for an individual to be standing in another skill. Use of the skill in medical situations does not imply medic skill. Use of the skill to pilot a ship in an emergency does not imply pilot skill. So this is a good skill to have. And like a lot of things in these old school games, and especially like an old school Traveler, a lot is left up for the referee to rule on and make a decision on, rather than explicitly detailed out in very, well, explicit rules, which I'm again okay with. I wouldn't allow, for instance, a character to abuse Jack of all trades in that, like, they're just going to become the pilot of a ship now. I suppose after a few emergency situations, you could consider maybe giving someone pilot 1 or something like that, but that would be up to the referee. Not sure that is something I would do, but this is a skill that a lot of people really like. You could apply Jack of all trades, for instance, to your forward observer skill. Like you're in a situation where you're on a mission with an NPC, and the NPC that is doing forward observation is killed. The person with Jack of all trades could maybe step in on the radio and be like, "Forward observer is dead. I'm going to start calling in the shots now." And you could use that skill. Leader. The individual has led troops in battle or on adventures and is possessed of a knowledge and self-assurance which will make for a capable, emergent, or appointed leader. Leadership is a required ability to control a group of more than 6 non-player hirelings or soldiers. Such a group will tend to obey the general orders of the character with the highest leader expertise. Reaction throws are necessary when the leader and the group first meet. DMs may be applied +1 per level of leader expertise when consulting the reaction table. Leader 3 or better is sufficient to allow soldiers to obey orders without hesitation. Leader 4 or better will allow a positive DM when recruiting soldiers or hirelings or adventurers. The throws for such hirelings and DMs depend on the situation. And leader, if I remember correctly, is also used when determining encounters and surprise, whether or not you get a positive modifier if you have the leadership skill. So, mechanical, the individual has skill in the use, operation, and repair of mechanical devices. The person is considered to be handy in this field with a talent similar to that of a green thumb. This skill specifically excludes the field of engineering. It does not include non-energy weapons repair. It does include, non-energy weapons repair. So your gunsmith, you could fix the rifle or the auto pistol, the body pistol, these sorts of things. Medical, the individual has training and skill in the medical arts and sciences. We should read this one because medical skills will come in handy. Medical science is capable of great feats in preserving and maintaining the health and welfare of individuals. The services of medically trained individuals are in great demand. The levels of medical skill represent steps in increasingly better ability and knowledge. Medical 1 is sufficient to qualify a character for a position of medic on a starship crew. An expertise of medic 2 or better allows a DM a +1 when reviving low passengers. Each normally throws 5+ to revive a trip, otherwise the passenger dies. Medical 3 is sufficient for a character to be called a doctor and assumes a license to practice medicine, including writing prescriptions, handling most ailments, and dealing with other doctors on a professional level. A dexterity of 8+ is required for a doctor to also be a surgeon. Xenomedicine is essentially very similar, but this is working on alien physiology rather than human physiology. Navigation, the individual has training and expertise in the art and science of interplanetary and interstellar navigation. We'll cover travel in the second book, I believe. Pilot, the individual has training and expertise in the operation of starships and large interplanetary ships. This skill encompasses both the interplanetary and interstellar aspects of large ship operation. We should read this skill because pilot is often a useful skill to have, especially if you want to purchase your own ship as a crew and eventually start sailing the galaxy on your own ship. Interstellar travel depends on starships and their crew. The single most important crew position is that of the pilot, responsible for control of the starship's liftoffs, landings, and routine flight. Pilot expertise qualifies a character for the job of pilot on a starship or interplanetary vessel over 100 tons. Referee, let's read the referee notes. Pilot expertise is usable as a DM in handling of starships as they move from world to world. Pilot expertise generally refers to interstellar ships. Much of the ordinary operation, however, is similar to that of interplanetary craft, and pilot expertise also applies to large interplanetary craft 100 tons and up. Small interplanetary craft 100 tons handles somewhat differently. Pilot expertise -1 may be used as ship's boat expertise as applied to interplanetary vessels under 100 tons. Thus, an individual with pilot 3 could also operate a small craft interplanetary vessel as if he or she had a skill of ship's boat 2. The reverse is not true. So, ship's boat, the individual is familiar with the function and operation of small interplanetary craft, collectively known as ship's boats. These craft range in size from 5 to 100 tons and include shuttles, lifeboats, launches, ship's boats, and fighters. So, you want to be a fighter pilot, you probably want to take ship's boat rather than pilot, but we'll see why. The small interplanetary craft carried as auxiliaries or boats on larger ships or serving the needs of bases and stations are distinctly different from the large vessels which ply the space lines. Ship's boats expertise reflects a distinct experience in piloting in the operation of these crafts. Pilot expertise -1 can be used as the equivalent level of a ship's boat expertise. Ship's boat skill is used as a DM in handling throws to determine various operations and their results. The following examples should illustrate this concept. Assume a hostile attack on a pinnace, small craft, flown by a character with ship's boat 2. Throw 10+ for the pinnace to escape on contact and avoid the attack. DM +2 based on the skill. Throw 8+ to avoid being hit by enemy fire if the escape attempt fails. DM +2 on that throw. Again, based on the skill. Alternate these throws until either escape succeed or the craft is hit. If the pinnace is hit, throw 5+ for it to be crippled and boarded. 4- for the craft to be destroyed. No DMs apply to this throw for a damage type. Similarly, assuming bad weather, storms, etc. at a planetary surface landing point, throw 9+ to land safely, +2 per level of expertise above. So that's ship's boat. You have steward. The individual is experienced and capable in the care and feeding of passengers, the duties of a ship's steward. This is something that if you are planning on using your ship, let's say your party of space adventurers or plan on using your ship to carry passengers from location to location, you're going to want someone with ship's steward in order to keep passengers comfortable. Streetwise, the individual is acquainted with the ways of local subcultures, which tend to be the same everywhere in human society, and thus is capable of dealing with strangers without alienating them. This skill is not the same as alien contact experience. This could be used for obtaining information, hiring persons, purchasing or selling contraband or stolen goods, and other shady borderline activities. And let's read the referee rules. After establishing throws for various activities desired by the characters, such as the name of an official willing to issue licenses without hassle, 5+, the location of a high-quality gun at a low price, 9+, allow Streetwise as a DM on the throw. If no Streetwise expertise is imposed, DM of -5. Tactics. The individual has training and experience in small unit tactics, up to and including units of 1,000 troops or individual spaceships. This skill is not to be confused with strategy, which deals with the reasons for the encounter and the intended results of the encounter. Strategy is the realm of the players rather than the characters. So that's what you're thinking about as the players. You're formulating strategies. It's not the same as tactics, as saying. When small units encounter hostile forces in battle by ambush or while adventuring, tactical skill can provide an advantage in gaining victory or reducing the disaster of the defeat. Tactics is used for surprise. It's a very useful skill, and once we cover combat, you'll see why you will want to gain surprise. Traveler is very deadly. You can get knocked out with one shot, and so you're going to want to either get that first round of surprise combat, and you're going to want to try and keep that surprise. So tactics is a good skill in doing that. Vehicle, the individual is skilled in the operation, use, and maintenance of specific type vehicle commonly available in society. Vac suit, very useful skill. The individual has been trained and has experience in the use of standard vacuum suit spacesuit, including armored battle dress and suits for use in various planetary surfaces in the presence of exotic, corrosive, or insidious atmospheres. So non-breathable atmospheres or hostile environments can easily be overcome by use of protective equipment, but the danger of minor mishaps becoming fatal remains great. A basic throw of 10+ to avoid a dangerous situation applies whenever any non-ordinary maneuver is attempted while wearing a vac suit, including running, jumping, hiding. Jumping's in there twice, I love that. Untethered from one ship to another, or other such activity. Allow a DM of +4 per level of expertise. When such an incident occurs, it may be remedied by any character with vac suit skill, including the character in danger, on a throw of 7+. DMs per level of expertise 2, +2. If no expertise, -4. Battle dress and combat armor are special forms of armored vac suit and require at least vac suit 1 to wear at all. So you're trying to untether from one ship and jump to another in the vacuum of space. You have to roll a 10. Let's say you have vac suit 1, or let's say you have vac suit 1, you're going to have a +4 to your roll. You have vac suit 2, you're going to have a +8 to your roll. If you somehow fail that roll, you're going to have to roll 7 or more to see if you're able to remedy the situation. If you have, again, vac suit 2, you're going to have a +4 to that roll. So you might have a problem, but as you're able to fix it yourself, or maybe someone is jumping with you from one ship to the other and they're able to fix your suit for you. So it does give you rules for creating new skills. The experience rules of Book 2 indicate methods by which an individual can learn additional skills after he or she begins actively adventuring. Those rules also cover the requirements for creating a new skill not otherwise detailed in traveler rules. For example, if a new weapon is developed, perhaps a laser pistol, a new skill would be required to enable to use it. So I like the flexibility of being able to add your own skills. Again, there's no plasma weapons in Classic Traveler, but if you wanted to add them, you could add it as a skill and use it that way. Default skills. Often some characters will have no skills appropriate to a given situation. A journey across a vacuum plane may be called for, and no one has vac suit skill. In such cases, the referee may indicate that all individuals not otherwise skilled have vac suit 0. A level of 0 for a skill indicates that the individual can undertake ordinary activities, but is not experienced enough to try dangerous activities or fancy actions. Level 0 indicates an orientation to the skill by an experienced person. It should not be taken as a stepping stone to level 1. Skills appropriate for level 0 are Air Raft, ATV, Forward Observer, Steward, Vac Suit, and Weapons. So, kind of gives you somewhat of a little forgiveness if you need to do something as a group and no one has that skill. Hopefully it's one of those. Then we get into retirement pay. If you were... So when we did character creation, if I had somehow gotten to 5 terms, this would be the retirement pay. Any character who leaves the service at the end of the 5th or later term of service is considered to have retired and receives retirement pay. This pension is paid at the beginning of each year, effective upon leaving the service. It may be collected at any Class A or B starport. The table indicates the rate of pay, which is dependent on the character's total terms of service. Service beyond the 8th term adds 2,000 per credit per additional term. Retirement pay is not available to characters who have served in Scout or other services. Scouts get it rough, man. You don't get promoted. You die. They don't expect those guys to live. I think you get some good skills though. And you got some rules for mustering out and Travelers Aid Society, which is interesting. It's a useful thing to get if you get the Travelers Aid Society sort of benefit when you muster out. Travelers Aid Society is a private organization which maintains hostels and facilities at Class A and B starports in human space. Such facilities are available at reasonable cost to members and their guests. Travelers Aid Society membership may be acquired upon mustering out while using the skills and benefits table. Once this benefit is achieved, for the receipt of the benefit has no effect. Membership may be achieved only once per character. Receipt of membership in the Travelers Aid Society upon mustering out may be construed as a reward for heroism or extraordinary service to the society, rather than an official benefit of the service. Membership in the society may also be purchased. Such purchases involve avoidance of a black ball, throw 4+ to avoid, and if accepted, payment of an initiation fee of 1,000,000 credits. That's a lot of money. Only 1 application per person is allowed. Membership is for the life of a character and is not transferable. The Travelers Aid Society invests its membership fees and other income. It uses its capital in return to provide benefits to its members. Every 2 months, it pays dividends in the form of 1 high passage to each member. This passage may be used, retained, or sold. So there's different ways of traveling. High passage means that you're going to have a pretty nice trip. Low passage is you're going to be in cryo freeze, and there's, as we read earlier, there's a chance that you might not survive being unfrozen. So there is that. Then you get other rewards, like you can get weapons, starships, other things like that. My character received a gun. Let's actually see if I did the rules for that properly. So weapons. The skills and benefits table indicates as a result blade or gun. In such cases, the character may choose any weapon. That's what I did. In the category, I chose a rifle, I believe. So my character was an army character, and I just kind of, in my head, as a backstory, like, he was really good, let him keep his rifle. We got plenty. So here's how we can show these characters here. We got a retired scout. He has a strength of 9, a dexterity of 9, an endurance of 3, an intelligence of 9, an education of 7, and a social status of 8, which is pretty good. He served 5 terms. He has pilot 1, vac suit 2, navigation 2, shotgun 2, ex-marine trooper. He has a strength of A, fantastic, dexterity of B, that's even more fantastic, endurance of 8, it's pretty good, an intelligence of B, which is really good, education of 6, and social standing of 7. And he has cutlass 2, vac suit 1, brawling 1, auto rifle 1, mechanical 1. And he has a cutlass. He served 4 terms, and he has 2,000 credits to his name. I just want to point out that this is partly why I love Traveler, because Classic Traveler in particular, you really don't even need a character sheet. This fits on an index card, and you still have a ton of room on your index card for everything else having to do with your character. And I just think that that is fantastic. All the information you need is there. I know some people get hung up on the universal, the UPP code here, but I think once you get the hang of it, it becomes super easy. One of the most interesting takes on attribute score use I've seen. And this game is super old. It's almost as old as D&D. So I think that's really cool. We won't go through the character generation example because we've already done that. And then we get to the character sheet. You can see strength, dex, endurance, intelligence, education, social standing. So you write your UPP code here, your name. I like that the character sheet looks like a DMB form, a military form. Obviously that's purposeful, but Travelers Aid Society form too. But yeah, that's cool. And then we get to our checklists, in which we kind of went over before. So next video is going to be combat. That is what we're going to be talking about next. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, going over skills and how you need to read what each skill is. You get a skill, read what it is. It's going to affect things differently as to how that skill is used. Each skill functions as its own sort of unique thing. It's going to use the same fundamental system of target number, roll 2d6, and there's going to be a modifier, but the modifiers are going to change based on the skill. It's not this universal like Mongoose 2e. Each tick in that skill, each level in that skill is just a +1 bonus. It's not that. It is a little more takes a little more reading to understand what it is your character is capable of doing, but altogether I really like that it functions that way. Not that there's anything wrong with Mongoose 2e. Again, it's a fine, fantastic game, one of the best games out there, and I want to cover it at some point, as I do have the PDFs for that. But yeah, we'll go over combat next. Next week will be combat, and if you like what I do, please like and subscribe. Check out my subscribe star. Supporters at $1 or more get a dungeon map a week. 3 or more gets an adventure month, and 5 or more get everything the previous ones get, but you also get anytime I release something bigger, like a bigger book, like when I eventually finish my Aztec book, or when I finish my Cowpunchers adventure book, I'm just going to give that to you for free for the PDF. And now that I figured out how to do printing on Drive-Thru-RPG, I should be able to send $5 people download links so that they can download it off of Drive-Thru. But then also, if you want, I can also do the print-on-demand books. I can maybe give you the books at cost that I make. So that's going forward down the line. If there's no real benefit at $5, but if you really like what I do, a lot of people have supported me at that tier, and I am so grateful to that. I would not be able to do what I'm doing without that, and I don't know what to say gratitude-wise that people like what I do and believe in what I'm doing enough to want to support my channel and the work that I'm doing in this hobby. So that means a heck of a lot to me. So that's going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I love Classic Traveler, and I can't wait to talk about combat, because combat is going to be lots of fun, and I really love the way combat is done in Classic Traveler. It's very, very cool, and I know some people probably hate it. I really like it. So with that, let's close this video out. Again, thank you for watching. I'll catch you guys probably later this evening. I'm going to be streaming with Greg from Chronicles of Ares, the author of that book. We're going to talk about his 5th edition third-party book. I'm not a fan of 5e, but if you're going to play 5e, I want to put a spotlight and support third-party creators that are making cool stuff and making 5e cool. So tune in for that tonight, 8:20 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So with that, I gotta go. I'm recording this on Father's Day, so peace out, guys. Talk to you later.